In 3 more weeks, we're going to find out if all those changes made a difference. 20 days away.
You are Locked On Trojans, your daily podcast on the USC Trojans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Fight on, everyone. I'm your host, Mark Holkin, and thank you for making Locked On USC, part of the Locked On Network, your first listen every day. Whether you're watching the show on YouTube, wherever you want to download your podcast, this show is always going to be free, and this show is always going to appreciate your support. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. As the playoffs wind down, the sports aren't sporting like we want them to, but this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all their customers with a boost or a bonus, and they're doing it daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com, and you can get started today. The Trojans have completed their first week of fall camp. They've actually gone a couple days past 1 week. Pads came on last week around Thursday, and the intensity immediately picked up, right? It's what you anticipate. Pads come on, hitting starts, physicality, the heat's up, things get intense. Well, when those things start to happen, that perfect storm comes together, you're going to get your first injury report, and I got that for you. It happened after Friday's practice. Coach Riley was forced to address it when the first question out of the box from the media was, hey, we saw Elijah Paige doubled up in pain. I'll get to that here in a second. So right now, cornerback Malachi Crawford, he has suffered an undisclosed season-ending injury. And then Braylon Shelby and Amos Talalele, they were dinged up after Thursday's practice. And then on Friday, they came out. I don't think they were full participants. But again, Coach Riley addressed it, so I can mention it. They were, for the most part, out that day. Nothing serious or kind of like a day-to-day thing, just dinged up. And then, like I mentioned, when the media is waiting outside to come back inside following Friday's practice so we can interview Coach Riley, one of the first things we noticed was Elijah Paige, your starting left tackle. He was in some serious discomfort. He was literally folded in half. And when you're 6'8", folding in half is not easy. He was walking across McClintock Avenue, which is, separates Howard Jones practice field from the McKay Center. And he had a really stiff-legged limp. Didn't look good. So obviously, first thing we asked Coach Riley about, hey, what's up? We got the injury report about Malachi Crawford, Talalele, and Shelby. And then Coach Riley wanted to emphasize that Elijah is fine. Elijah is fine. He said it twice. He practiced all day today, got a lot of work in. So that's all who's left. As far as, Elijah was going to be okay. Don't worry about it, everybody. Well, I wasn't going to let it lie there. I checked with one of my sources. Actually saw a picture from Saturday's practice. Elijah looked like he was all suited up, ready to practice. I don't know how much he participated, but he was out there. He was ready to play. And we're going to talk. The reason I want to point that out is we're going to talk about that in the third segment. So got a lot of info for you in the show, but make sure we're going to circle back and we're going to talk about Elijah Paige and his growth. But before we do that, anyways, as I mentioned, it's been physical these last few days of practice. So physical, in fact, that I mentioned Elijah Paige. Well, he wasn't the only one who had his shirt off, looking like he was a little uncomfortable. Jacoby Lane, he's fine. I'm not trying to say, here's another guy who was injured. But he had his shirt off, his shoulder pads were off, and he didn't look like he was in his typical jovial mood that Jacoby's in after practice. He was making a beeline right to the McKay Center. So again, really physical practice. And I'm based on the sounds that were coming over the wall while the media is waiting outside to come back in. I kind of got the impression that the offensive side of the ball, maybe they didn't have the best day. They had to do some extra running. Again, this is all assumptions on my part, but to these trained practice ears, I was listening to the whistle blow. And it wasn't the type of whistle where let's just stop the play and all right, let's go again. It was blow the whistle, start running. There's a little bit of time, blow the whistle, start running. If you've ever taken place in practice of any kind, football, basketball, whatever, you know the cadence that I'm talking about. But here's what really stood out to me. As I mentioned, it was the usual jovial, talkative Jacoby. He wasn't in a good mood. So I'm kind of trying to, add one and one together and give you two. Doesn't necessarily mean that's the case, but based off of what Lincoln Riley said, seeing Elijah Paige, seeing Jacoby Lane, it was obviously a very physical Friday practice. And this is what I wrote over on wearesc.com in my practice report. Whatever happened after the media viewed the practice, it took a toll on some of the guys. Following day 6, there was a lot of energy. Everyone was in a really good mood. That wasn't the case after day 7. That was the second day that the pads were on. So as I said, I think the intensity was ratcheted up a little bit. And by the time practice was over on Friday, everybody was feeling it. Everybody looked the part. On Friday's episode of Locked on USC, I brought over special guest Eric McKinney from wearesc.com. The audio portion of the show, fantastic. We had some video tech glitches, so we kind of look like a Bruce Lee movie. I apologize. We'll have him on again in the future. Nevertheless, a very informative show. So when you're done making this episode of Locked on USC, if you didn't catch Friday's episode, go check it out. Really good. Now, if you are an everydayer of this show, you know that the credentialed media has been given a little bit more access during practices. Fortunately, I asked for it, and we're getting a little bit more. I would still like to get a little bit more, so I'm going to keep asking. Now, I think one of the reasons we're getting a little bit more access is because of the larger area that we have to cover. Again, if you're an everydayer, you know how big USC's practice field is now. It looks great, and I'll go over it more, but I don't want to belabor the issue. Now, you may have seen some of USC football's social media content. They put out a video following Saturday's practice. That's when it seems like all the real hitting, the real physicality, it takes place when nobody's around, except the players, the coaches, the referees, USC social media department. Anyways, they put out a video after following Saturday's practice, and they're calling it Lincoln Riley's Midnight Alley Drill. It's a variation of the old Oklahoma drill. It's 3-on-3 smash mouth football, and the drill takes place in a very limited space. Now, here's a breakdown. There was 6 rounds. Eric McKinney over there at wearesc.com took the time to break it down. I'm going to give you a real quick synopsis of it. Round 1, you had Quentin Joyner as the ball carrier. Jade Abasiri was one of the defenders. He was going up against Alani Noah, and he actually handled Noah really fairly easily in that round of the contest. And he helps out freshman linebacker Desmond Stevens with the tackle. And it also looks like Kate Eldredge did a really good job on Elijah Newby. But if you look at it, the defense won that round. Round 2, Jay Fair was the ball carrier. Tobias Raymond, he took care of freshman Ratumana Bulabalavu. 2 mountains came together. This time, Tobias won. Jaden Richardson was one of the wide receivers on the play. He was a blocking wide receiver, and he handled Christian Pierce. And then Prophet Brown was able to get to Jay Fair and run him out of bounds just short of the goal line. In round 3, Marion Peterson was the ball carrier. His offensive lineman was Justin Tauanu. Deuce Robinson was also in front of him as a blocking wide receiver. Justin and Carlon Jones had a really good battle, but I think you're going to give the edge to Jones. And then that he was able to help get Peterson close to the goal line. Robinson took a shot Roman Marchetti was the other guy in on that one, and he took care of Deuce Robinson. Front of the show, Roman he did just enough though. And then Zion Branch, he was there. I guess he cleaned it up just in time. But I think for me, it looked like Peterson got across the goal line. You go check it out. You tell me what you see when you're watching the video. Charles Ross was in there, Kobe Pepe, Marcellus Williams, Kyle Ford. Everybody was getting involved. There was one round that had Brian Jackson, the freshman running back. He was the ball carrier. Cameron Fountain. He got the best of Micah Banuelos. It looks like Jacoby Lane got a really good solid block on someone wearing the number 51 jersey. That might be one of the new walk-ons. I don't know. On that same play, though, Lane tripped over Micah. He fell down. Nevertheless, Braylon Connolly was there. He put on a big pop. I mean, a really big hit on Brian Jackson. And then the other two defenders were able to recover in time to help clean it up. The highlight of that, Connolly got mobbed by everybody wearing a white jersey. The defense recognized the freshman did what he was supposed to do. Showed some real physicality, some real moxie on his own. One-on-one. It was Texas on Texas. And I don't know who you want to say won, but the way the team reacted, it looked like Connolly won. It went to overtime. Jacoby Lane and Jay Fair were pleading with with Lincoln Riley. Kobe Riley? With Lincoln Riley. They wanted one more rep. I'm not sure if Jacoby, well, it ended up being the former walk-on, Josiah Zamora. Killian O'Connor was on his team as well. And the walk-ons won the day. Josiah scored the winning touchdown. Here's the thing. Whoever won those battles, it didn't matter. Go watch the video. Just go to X and look up USC football's social media account. What really matters the most out of this is the camaraderie that the team had, the physicality that they were showing. The team was having so much fun, but most importantly, they were practicing being physical, but they were having fun doing it. It was one of those, if you're old enough to remember and you were able to go to one of those Pete Carroll practices back in the day, it was like Competition Tuesday on steroids. That's what it was. Hopefully, the media will be able to watch one of these types of events up close and personal, because I would love to be able to tell you about it up close and personal. I got more to talk to you about, though. So that's going on this fall camp. We're gonna talk about who I think is going to be in the starting lineup game one. That's coming up next. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more, whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back, because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into that MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay. Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Hey, thanks for making Locked on USC your first listen every day. Tell you what, for your second listen, I need you to go enjoy the Locked On College Football podcast. Spencer McLaughlin is your host. He's going to get you ready for an exciting season on the gridiron, including conference realignment, the transfer portal. You interested in NIL, the new college football expanded playoffs? He's got you covered. All of that and more. Locked On College Football is available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. After 1 week of fall camp, I'm going to give you my preliminary starting lineup on both sides of the ball. All right. Hey, I'm going to probably end up changing this before USC and LSU kick off, which, by the way, 3 weeks. It's less than 3 weeks away. If you're watching this episode of Locked On USC first thing Monday to start your week, it's 20 days away from USC kicking off their season. Yeah, I'll be in Vegas. Will you be? Here you go. Let me know who you would swap out if you disagree. At quarterback, you know me, it's Miller time. At left tackle, I'm going Elijah Paige. At left guard, I've got Emmanuel Prignon still penciled in there. At center, Jonah Monheim. You can write that in pen. In fact, use calligraphy. Make it really fancy. That ain't changing. Right guard. This is where I don't have a starting lineup. But as of today, I'm going to go Gino Quinones. Or, again, it could be Alani Noah. Or it could be Amos Talalele. It's actually, again, it's the one spot that needs to be figured out. Tell you what, I wonder if Alani's going to get sent to the scout team to get some of that treatment. Stick around for the next segment. It's about Elijah Paige. It's a nice story about how he went to the scout team, but how it helped him. And then at right tackle, your starter as of right now, Mason Murphy. I'm going to go starting tight end. I think this is an easy choice, Lake McCree. At running back, I think this is probably a safe choice as well, based off of his experience playing in the SEC conference and how much success he's had playing against LSU. That's right, Woody Marks. At wide receiver, I'm going to go with a 3 wide receiver lineup. I got Zachariah Branch. I've got Jacoby Lane. And my third, I'm going to go Kyron Hudson. Who do you have? Let's flip over to the other side of the ball. Let's talk about the defense. I'm going to give you 2 different starting lineups because I think there's a lot more depth than anybody really anticipated. Up front, starting 4, I'm going to go Jameel Muhammad, Pierre Alexander inside, Nate Clifton inside, Braylon Shelby at that rush end. I'm going to put Easton Mascarenas Arnold at the mic. I'm going to put Mason Cobb at the weak side linebacker. I got Greedy Vance starting at nickel. My starting safeties, Achille Arnold, Kamari Ramsey. My starting cornerbacks, DeCarlos Nicholson, Jacoby Covington. Now, how about this starting defense when USC takes on LSU? Did a little bit deeper research. I checked with somebody who has some pretty good sources. What would you think of Anthony Lucas at one defensive end, Bear Alexander, Nate Clifton, Jameel Muhammad at the rush end? You've got Mason Cobb, Easton Mascarenas at the linebacker spots. But what about Anthony Beavers or Zion Branch at the nickel? That's a possibility. And then at cornerback, what if you have John Humphrey, the transfer from UCLA? What if Jalen Smith is starting opposite him at cornerback? I say Jalen Smith because I was told, not by one, but a couple of folks, Jalen is working at cornerback this year. And you know what? Tell you what, even if you do disagree, that's not a bad thing. You don't like my starting lineup? Tell me yours. We don't have to be in agreement. Make your case. You know where the comment section is on YouTube. You know where I work when I'm not doing Locked On USC. Hit me up over on WeAreSC.com. The reason why it's okay if you disagree and why it's not a bad thing, because we both agree on one point. It means there's a lot more depth than people think USC has on that defensive side of the ball. Specifically, we're talking about the secondary right now. I know I sound like a broken record, but that secondary is so deep, so good. You don't hear his name often. I mentioned it just a minute ago. I mentioned it after the Holiday Bowl. But Anthony Beavers, yeah. Remember that forced fumble that led to Jacoby Covington having that moment in the end zone? That shout out, we're a team now? Anthony Beavers had a really strong Holiday Bowl. He's had a really strong fall camp so far. In that bowl game, he had 5 tackles, the forced fumble. Again, he's carrying that over. The reason I'm bringing his name up right now, I got word from somebody after Saturday's scrimmage that, and I won't say which quarterback threw the interception. It's not important. What is important is that the defense got big time pressure on the quarterback, and it forced a throw downfield that probably wasn't the intended throw, but Beavers stepped in front of it and he ran it back for a pick six. Beavers is 6'1", 222 pounds. I told you, he looks like a linebacker, but he's making plays downfield against 50 or wide receivers. Yeah, the person he stepped in front of wasn't one of the big wide receivers. It was one of the smaller guys. That's all I'm going to say on that. So, again, do you agree? Do you disagree with my starting lineups? It's okay if you do. I don't care. Just make your case. Tell me why you would start this person. And let's have the discussion. That's what this is all about. And like I said, I'm going to be changing my starting lineups between now and that game against LSU probably 2 more times. Hopefully it's because other guys have stepped up and earned the role, and it's not because of next man up injury type of situation. Everybody held their breath when we saw Elijah Paige following Friday's practice. But again, everything seems to be okay. Coach said he was fine. Everything's fine. One of my sources sent me a picture saying, hey, look, Elijah's out there on Saturday. So there you go. Here's where we're at. 3 weeks, less than 3 weeks before USC kicks off versus LSU. And I will be going back to practice on Tuesday or Wednesday. Wednesday is our next time back, just the way the schedule's set up. So we're going to talk about how the scout team is actually maybe one of the best teachers out there. That's coming up next. I love sports. I love USC football and USC basketball. I wish I could watch them 24/7, 365 days a year. I know that's not possible. And I also know that I can never watch playoff games all year long. Right now, we're getting Major League Baseball. But you know what? FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open up the app, dream up any bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all their customers with Boost or a bonus, and they're doing a daily. That's right. There's something for everyone, every day, all summer long. So head on over to FanDuel.com/LockedOn and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Look, whether you're the left tackle and waiting to play on USC's football team, you're the head coach being called out by media members, whatever your role is, if you play or coach at USC, you end up having to prove yourself. You're going to have a humbling experience at some point. Let's be honest. Last year, 2023, was a humbling experience all the way around, right? If you were part of the USC football program, again, if you were the head coach, if you were the defensive coordinator, the players, everyone got a little bit of taste of that humility. Everybody, even the fans. The Trojans literally went from being the media darling, winning 11 games the year before, winning another Heisman, almost making the playoffs. Dude, they became like the media's favorite punching bag. I mean, it got so bad for Lincoln Riley this offseason. You had one member of the media calling him a coward. Say, yeah, he ran away from the SEC. He's getting everything he deserves. He doesn't even deserve to be USC's head coach anymore. That's how bad it got. Well, we know how some people can overreact. Head coaches don't have the opportunity to overreact. They have to make decisions. One of the decisions that Coach Riley made, in conjunction with offensive line coach Josh Henson, was sending Elijah Paige off to the scout team. Elijah had a humbling experience last year, and that was it. And it was somewhere around halfway through the season where his position coach just said, hey, you know what? I need more out of you. So he talked it over with the head coach. They both agreed. Send him on down to the scout team. Let him get his butt kicked a little bit. Let him learn a lesson. Let him learn what it takes if you want to be USC's starting left tackle. Because that's what he was brought to USC for. That's what he was being groomed to do as a true freshman. No one was calling Elijah a coward. That wasn't the case. But when your position coach starts to question your willingness to fight for something that's important, that's not a good sign either. So a little bit, one of those swift kicks in the butt. Get over there, do your job. Essentially, Elijah had to prove to Josh Henson that he was capable of protecting USC's quarterbacks. This is what Coach Henson said after practice last week. We were a little frustrated. We felt like he got to a certain spot and he just kind of plateaued. He's talking about Elijah's development during his freshman season. So, following one of their practices last year, Coach Henson was explaining how he and Riley just said, you know what? We're going to test Paige. We're going to see how willing he is to fight back. How's he going to react to this? He can either take it as a demotion, or he can go and sulk about it and put his tail between his legs and cry, or he can fight back. He can show everybody, you know what? I don't belong here. Basically, we just said this kid needs to go down there and he needs to get beat up a little bit. That's what Coach Riley said. Coach Henson added this. When you're playing on the scout team, they're trying to bully you, push you around, and you have two choices. You can either take it or you can fight and get better and grow. Elijah chose to grow. When he came back, then that's when I really noticed his game had progressed to another level. It showed up during the bowl game. He had a really good bowl game. And since then, he's brought it with him all the way through winter workouts, spring camp, summer player run practices, and into fall camp. And that's what you need from your starting left tackle. He's starting to get a lot of attention. He is a big young man, 6'8", 320 pounds. He's one of those first guys you want stepping off the bus. The first impression you want other teams, other fans to see. You want that intimidation factor. And Elijah has that just standing there. He had to learn how to be an intimidating factor with the pads on when the whistle blew. Like I said, when we saw Paige, uncomfortable after practice Friday, he was in pain. You could hear a pin drop. The media was like, the last thing this team needs, right, is reshuffling the offensive line. The margin for error and injury, it's so razor thin. There's just no room for it, especially at that position. Moving Jonah Monheim back to left tackle, that's your last resort. And the reason it's a last resort, not because he can't handle it. We know he can. It's because of the trickle-down effect it has on the rest of the offensive line, the reshuffling. You'll lose some of that depth, which you don't have a lot of. All right. There you go. First episode of the week. A lot going on. Things are getting physical. Things are heating up. We are into week 2. We're going to see what happens. We're going to see who survived the weekend. I'm going to have more player quotes, more coaches' quotes. I'm going to have more practice reports coming up this week. So make sure you're tuning in every day to Locked On USC. It's your number one source. 30 minutes or less every day. And then when you're done watching Locked On USC, and you're done listening to college football, head on over to weareusc.com. Trust me, we are your sources for everything USC. So until the next episode, everyone, you know what to do.